Greetings. My name is Dr. Samuel Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of In Touch Community Services Incorporated. I come to you today to say thank you for coming and being involved in our trainings for as the United States Department of Agriculture. We have a collaborative effort to work together to show you how we can raise organic vegetables and do things the organic way. It kind of brings us back to the old farm, but doing it in a modern way. And we have the knowledge and the expertise to show us how to do those things in order to produce those plants, raise those animals and things of this nature, to make sure that we receive the training and the education that we need. And that's why we're here today. We're here to teach you more about the United States Department of Agriculture and the services that they bring. So we pray that you will enjoy it, continue to come and listen to us as we teach you concerning the United States Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
This is Delmer Stamps with In Touch Community Services, and we're out on Mr. James Gregory farm today. We're going to be looking at some of his irrigation practices and cover crop, mulching, micro irrigation, crop rotation, and a number of practices that an average farmer that's growing vegetables would need to consider applying as they work with the Natural Resources Conservation Service and applying conservation practices. Mr. Gregory, would you like to share with us what you have here and talk about your irrigation system and the crops that you have here?
All right, NRCS put this in about 2.5 years ago. It's a 4-inch well. It's reduced down to 2-inch. This right here is a siphon for my fertilizer. You hook it up to the main line, which is 2-inch. Same thing here. Take this right here. Once you get everything filled up and running, you stick that down in there like that. And this sucks out the fertilizer mixed with water all the way down that line to or just some of the individual rows if you wanted a fertilizer. It doesn't take long, but you gotta kind of like measure out what you gotta have because you don't want to overdo it. It's real simple, and then once you get the hang of it, it's like baking a cake. So, and then once you do that, you run it down through the lines like this here, every line, until it runs out. Then you flush out the system because there's a lot of fertilizer still left up in the system. You want to flush it out. So that way it won't cake up in the irrigation pores. Then you know you got a clean system. When you get ready to irrigate your rows, a lot of stuff don't need to be irrigated. As much rain we got this year, I didn't need it. But certain crops need a lot more water, like tomatoes and stuff like that. What I do, this little line right here, take a drill a hole, stick this in there like that, and you don't need another one of those because them little things cost a little money, which is not much, but you're trying to save everything. You just stick that up in there like that. Come over here, which is the drip tape. This is some of the drip tape. It's underneath this plastic. And what you do, this little deal right here, you hook that on there, screw that in there, put that in there, and that's it. Now, if you wanna do the individual rows with turnoffs, they got little special turnoff valves that you can put on the rows that you wanna turn on and turn off, or you can put them on all rows. They don't cost that much, but really it's up to the individual what he wants to spend or whatever she wants to spend. And it's just that simple. This field, if I had to water it, which I have watered it this year, you can see the squash, zucchini squash, how pretty and green it is. I hadn't had no water. Now the quick neck squash, they're playing out because we've been picking squash ever since April, end of April. So they're about time for them to play out. But the thing about it is this, is that as long as you know what your plants are doing. It's like baking a cake. If you don't put no sugar in that cake, it's not gonna taste at all. And the soil, when you get ready to check the irrigation, I usually use a screwdriver. And what you do, take a screwdriver, you dig down in the ground, put it deep. What you're trying to do is see what the soil content is going to be like. All right. This soil is dry. It needs some water. There's a little moisture in it, but not much. And that's how you tell what's got to be water and not water. If I can make a ball, that means it doesn't need water. But when it crumbles in your hand, you need some irrigation. A field like this here, you gotta let it run. You gotta get up early in the morning because it doesn't put a lot of water out like the fields in the Delta. You're gonna need 3 hours or 4 hours on a field like this. So that way, that water will be there. And that's the way I check my moisture in my soil. The little holes that's in there, you go around the plant, take a screwdriver or whatever, a knife. If you can't make a ball, that means that it needs some water.
You indicated that you were pumping out of your pond prior to getting a well.
Yeah.
What did you do, and what did it take for you to get a well? Where did you?
I live in Rankin County. I went down and saw, at the time, it wasn't Mr. Malcolm, it was
Lord Fordham.
Mr. Fordham. And
what office is this?
This is in Rankin County, in Brandon. And at the time, he said, wasn't no money, and I got warm because I knew some people had already got a well, wasn't you? And then eventually I got a well, and they come out, and I had the first guy was from, I think, Monticello, and where he was right up there where that tractor was. He couldn't hit no water. So I found another guy, he lives right here in Nebraska. He come out here in 3 days, I had a well.
Okay.
And
what's the name of the agency that you?
NRSCS.
NRCS?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the name of the program that provided the financial assistance?
It was equipped. It was I don't forgot exactly what program it was, but it was
EQUIP. Okay.
Yeah.
Environmental Quality Incentive Program, which is a financial assistance program that's managed by the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And in recent time, many small farmers have been able to benefit from the irrigation well because they were doing like Mr. Gregory. It was pumping from a pond or another water source. It was pretty expensive. And now with all of the certification for growers to sell to the public, those water sources are now not acceptable. So having quality water to irrigate with and to wash vegetables with is very important. It's meeting all of the GAP standards.
Not the stores that I sell to, not yet.
Okay.
So far I've been lucky. Okay. There are some stores probably doing it, but as long as I've been selling with the stores, they haven't had no problem with it.
But you use this water also for washing your vegetables as well as irrigating, or you don't?
I use mostly for washing and irrigation, and pretty much that's it. Okay. I do have a spout there for chemicals and stuff, but 9 times out of 10, sometimes I don't use that. Okay. I run a hose from my house because I don't want nothing contaminate the vegetables. Right. Well, I'd rather pay that extra $20, $30 than to get sued. Okay. All right, before I got this well, I was pumping out of that pond behind the house. And it took a long time to do it. And eventually I finally got accepted for a well. And it saved me a lot of time. This pump's put out 12 gallons a minute. That's what it's rated at. 12 gallons might not be a lot, but it is when you figure if you run 4 hours. You do the math. Only thing, what I do before I start in the spring of the year or the summer, I let every section of my field, I got 5 sections. Every section runs for 30 minutes because a lot of silt will come out. You want clear water so you don't plug up your irrigation line because that little fine dirt won't be getting the water to what the crop needs. So every year, if you get a well, remember, let it run for 30 minutes because you're going to have a little silt, and then when that water starts clearing up, you shut it off and go to the next one. Now, one thing about this, you got to get a soil sample, not a soil sample, but you got to get a water sample, and it costs you, I think, about $50 for it to do that. You know, when you sell vegetables to the stores and stuff like that, because they want to make sure that the water is safe. So that's one of the things.
It's hard to grow vegetables in Mississippi without irrigation. So this is really the hub. This is one of the major practices that would be needed for a person who is pursuing vegetable production not on a medium scale, you know, because if you're small, it won't be economical, but the well is very critical in providing water for producing vegetables in Mississippi. We get a lot of water, but we don't get it always when we need it.
That's true. The water you want to get the water when the plants come out, especially when they start putting blooms on. That's when you want to put the water to it so they can come on with it. And if they don't do that, you know, there go your profit.
Okay. That's great. Thanks very much.
The best time to check the pest management on your crops is early in the morning because they're going to be there. First thing you want to look at, the leaves, the fruit, see what's going on. You got to take your time and do that. Once you realize what you got, always take a small Ziploc bag, break the leaf off, put it in a bag if you don't know how to identify it, and go talk to somebody that can help you. And they'll tell you, well, this is what you need. Once you realize that, you go on and get everything, the stuff that you need to do it. But with me, I come out here, I don't see nothing, but that don't mean tomorrow there won't be nothing. So what I do, I'll go on and start spraying. You got to understand this, is that the weather's got a lot to do with the insects, rain, fungicide. Just like it's supposed to get rain the next 3 days, a lot of this stuff was sprayed yesterday. So it'll get into the plants and prevent it from getting fungicide, and the same thing with insecticide. But on this farm, I got bees, and you can't spray at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. You got to spray after the bees go in. And bees go in around 6:37. I wait till 7. It's been some time I'm out here at night with the light on the equipment trying to get it done. And then once you get it done, that's it. The regimen that I do every 7 days. Now, if I know it's going to rain on a Friday and I spray on a Friday, what day am I going to spray on? I'm going to spray on a Wednesday. Offset that. In other words, if there's any insects out there, he said, well, I know he's going to spray on Friday, but I come back 2 days early and spray because I know it's going to rain. Because that rain will wash that stuff off. All right. A lot of people think plastic is expensive. It's not, depending on what you want to accomplish. Why I put plastic down? Not tomatoes, the squash, they're eating up the fertilizer. There's no weeds in between them sucking the fertilizer. So what you want to do, this was laid down in April. It was kind of wet, but you're still able to put it down. You could have put it down in April and then come back and plant it in March or middle of March. This, what it does, all these plants are transplants. They're not seeds. What it does, it's like an incubator. You put this plastic down, you put your hands under there, and you feel nothing but heat. Matter of fact, if you want to, you can stick your hands up here now, you can feel this heat. It sweats. Puts moisture in the soil. This is an advantage for an early crop, and you get the best prices. Now, squash, we've been picking squash since the last of April. We was picking squash on Mother's Day. So that's early squash, and you get a good price for it. At the time, I think it was $1.79, $1.80 a pound. If you can get squash like that, for that price, that's a good price. That's why I use plastic. I have a machine that will pick this plastic up, cut a line down through there, and then we'll pull it up and burn it. The irrigation tape, a lot of times I save it for people that want it, and a lot of times I just burn it. Okay, in the fall of the year, it's not that way yet, but what we do is rotate everything in here. We got squash in here right now. Next year, this whole field will be in watermelon. Where watermelon is over there, it'll be squash. Tomatoes will be over there. Back there where there's peppers and some tomatoes, that'll all change. You rotate every year, then that way, number one, if you plant watermelons behind each other, you're gonna have a disease problem. Same way with squash. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. And you're taking a lot out of nutrients out of the soil when you're going back over. You're breaking your soil down. What I usually do, after everything is out, I do plant fall crops. This field will be a fall crop this year. It have turnip greens, mustards, and collards. I won't put a fall crop in here, but everything else you see, I have a fall crop. Mostly I use wheat. And it'll stay there until time for spring.
Mr. Greg, I see you had the rows kind of spaced out a little wide there. Is there any particular reason why you choose to do it this way?
Well, the easy, number one, we make it easy on the pickers, and you won't be running over your vegetables. If your row's too close, you're gonna tear up or destroy a plant. That plant might have been putting out 4 or 5 squash per plant. All of a sudden it goes back to 2. So you're losing your production. I want to go down there and be able to pick that vegetable, not do no damage. And then you got to consider the workers, because you don't want them to hurt themselves. Then you out of a worker, then they might want to, take you to court. So you try to make it easy for them. If I was picking, I want them to make it easy for me.
Okay. I see you have a real wide area here that you set aside for your travel, for your equipment, as well as the waterway here. Can you talk about how you design this and why you did it this way?
Well, they used to hold a lot of water, rut and stuff like that. So one day I started looking at it and I said, well, because I used to run my roads like this. And the water would come down, wash all the stuff down. So I said, no. And the way you look at the landscape now, you see it's on a fall. It's on a fall. It's not on a big fall, but it's on a gradual fall. That water come down instead of with a lot of force, smooths out and goes down this way. Why I got it so wide, when them big trucks and stuff come in there, they can turn around without getting over on the plants and destroying the plant. You can get, I don't know how many cars, and if you had, say I needed 5 people, 6 people, instead of walking from there, they can drive their car down here, truck, park them in the shade, easy way in, easy way out.
I see you have a stand of grass there, and that kind of serves as a filter for setting out any sediments and improve your water quality too, I take it.
Well, why I got that now, what I'm gonna do in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna push all that down around the edges, so that way, because in July and August we don't get a lot of rain. That is there for the rain we done got. We done got a lot of rain. One day we got 3 inches, one time we got 4 inches. So you can imagine how much water went that way. You can tell the leaves of this watermelon, it's got this white stuff on it. That's a fungicide. Also, it was insecticide. Every 7-10 days, I do this. See how pretty the leaves are? They're green. They're not dying, a lot of them. This is one of the watermelons, still it ain't ready yet. It'll get about 28 to 30 pounds. You have a nubbin right next to it. So in other words, it's got plenty of fertilizer on it. You can see how close they are. See how you got 5 watermelons right in this area. So you figure there's gonna be more watermelons in the next 2 weeks. And the thing about it is this, that means that even though you see some weeds in there, them weeds and this grass is covering them up from being sunburned. Because a watermelon, if it's 80 degrees or 90 degrees, how hot you think that watermelon is? So, and another thing that we do, a lot of people, you wonder why come the vines ain't all the way in the middle. We turn these vines. We take a little stick of your hand, and all you do is this. You take your hand like this here. If it's got a watermelon on it, you pick it up and set it up on the plastic. And once that watermelon started making, that weight's gonna hold it down. I turn the watermelon. Now this watermelon, it's not bad, but when I see one like this here, because it's on the ground, it's in a low spot, when the watermelon comes, water's gonna get underneath it, and what's the first thing it's gonna do is gonna rot. So now that watermelon's up on that plastic, it won't rot, and all the watermelons running this way. You see how watermelons are getting close together? They're getting ready to, see how close them two together? They're easy to find. When we pull them, makes your job easy. And then the middle is where you can drive down or pick and won't trip over or anything else like that, you know. I mean, you can look at all the roads pretty much. You see all the vines are up on the plastic. See, that watermelon, when it started getting big, it's going to stay right there because that wind is not going to pick it up. Why it's nothing on there, it's going that way. Same thing with cucumbers. They do the same thing.
You just heard Mr. Gregory talk about how he turns the vines on top of the plastic and it helps hold the plastic down. But as a farmer myself, I see the value in the ease in harvesting and management and spraying, having a wide row that you can come down with a 4-wheeler or a gator or something, or pickup truck to manage. Particularly, he just sprayed this field a couple of days ago with your insecticide. Just imagine you not having to watch stepping over the plants. You know, so this makes it really easy to manage the overall crop and make it more enticing for those of you have somebody come want to pick. So I learned this today, Mr. Gray. I want to know, I appreciate that.
Well,
And,
you know, you got to understand one thing about farming. Not everybody know everything, but there's a lot of farmers and people in business that take a lot of knowledge to your grave. I'm trying to make it easy on my sons, their kids, or whoever else, because somebody's got to grow this stuff. All right, this is a rain flow mulch layer. It lays a bed 4 feet wide. This is the plastic. It's real simple. You got to order 4 feet wide. What you do, you run it down here, run it through that roller, run it underneath that roller, and put it underneath these tires. These 2 blades right here, once you got it set, it throws the dirt up and makes the bed. That is where the soil runs in at. It makes the bed. This is a fertilizer. Instead of spreading fertilizer all over the field when you plant with a spreader, you put your fertilizer in here and you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This right here is your irrigation tape. You run this back underneath there just like that. It goes out the back end. When that bed is made, the bed is up like this here. The irrigation tape goes here, the plastic goes there. When this tape comes out, you need a rod. You need 2 people, one at that end and one at the other end. And what you do, they'll have a shovel and a knife because you got to cut this. When you get ready to start, you stick a stake in with a hammer. There's a hammer on there. And all you do, when it takes off, that tape stays right there and it rolls. And when you get to the end, you cut it. This holds about 300 pounds of fertilizer, depending on what you plant. Like when I plant tomatoes, I use different types of fertilizer. And I put down enough fertilizer that I don't have to put none down after the plants come up. This right here, if you got a slope on your row like this here, this is plugged into a battery, and what it does, it'll turn this machine to that slope so that plastic can keep on going. And then it'll straighten back up. I don't use the markers because I already know how wide I want it. And simply that's it. It'll lay a 3-foot, a 4-foot, and a 5-foot plastic. This is the hydraulic oil that runs this cylinder. You check that. And simply that's it. The fertilizer runs off a monitor in that tractor or that tractor, and you control it on the inside. The adjustment is right here for fertilizer. This little round knob right here, it opens up and fertilizer come out right here. All the fertilizer going right in the bed. It's not going all over the field. A lot of people, when they fertilize, they throw fertilizer everywhere. You feeding the weeds and taking away from the plant. A machine like this here, brand new, will cost you about $5,000. You can find them online, $1,800, $2,000. If there's a group of farmers that live in the same community, 2 miles, 6 miles, you need a heavy tractor. This machine requires a 90 horsepower tractor, but they got something smaller than that that requires a 65 horsepower tractor. And simply that's it, but this is the best thing you can have.
Okay, for those who are, been farming for a little bit or maybe new in farming a piece of ground, Mr. Gray was talking earlier about the need for a soil analysis, soil sample. And not only do you need a soil analysis and soil sample, you need to know what type of soil you have. And the Mississippi State University and Oklahoma State University provide guidance to the extension program as what type of soil are best suited for various crops that you want to grow. Well, the NRCS has a published soil survey that also identifies soil type. We're talking about clay soils, sandy soils, or silty soils. So once you look at your soil survey, work with the NRCS and determine what kind of soil you have, then you look at the various publications from Mississippi State and Alcorn State to determine what crops are best suited for that soil. Then that's where you want to be. You want to make sure you're growing a crop that is suited for the soil in your area versus trying to force feed something that you may not make any money on. So with the soil analysis, it's going to let you know the nutrients for your nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and some of your micronutrients. But it's also going to let you know what lime you need, how acid your soil might be. So without knowing what your pH of your soil is and what lime amounts you might need or may not need, and that's how you kind of cut corners and not over apply. Mr. Gray was talking about the fertilizer distributor spreader here. He's doing direct fertilizer. He's not doing broadband. So the fertilizer is going exactly where the plant would take it up. So that's to start off with. You definitely need to know about what type of soil you have, what's the quality of that soil for us, any kind of nutrient needs that it has, and then match up the plants that you're going to grow with the soil in your area and the time of the year that you want to grow those crops. And we'll follow up with a little bit more of this a little bit later.